Part 3. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 21. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Lin Ziyan was woken up by the ringing of his cell phone. He rarely decided to sleep today because he was really tired today and was mentally tired. It was an unfamiliar number, but it would call him at this time. Lin Ziyan also guessed who it was. Lin Ziyan answered the phone, but there was no sound coming from the other end, and Lin Ziyan didn't intend to let her speak first. Is it Camry? The other person started crying, which gave Lin Ziyan a headache. What's the matter? If GMA has anything, you can tell me. Lin Ziyan could only comfort her patiently. Are you, really Onasan? Of course, you can definitely hear the beauty of my voice. I told you to have a good rest just now, why didn't you obey? No. GMA is not disobedient, it's just, will Onasan come to see me tomorrow? There may be some problems tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow. I'll go over to see you, but GMA needs to be obedient. Okay, I will definitely be obedient and have a good rest. Lin Ziyan and Yukino Yoshimi chatted for almost half an hour before finally coaxing her back to sleep. Lin Ziyan was now lying on the bed, unable to sleep, with so many thoughts in his mind. Although he could easily clear away distracting thoughts and enter a state of clear mind, that is, a state of concentration, Lin Ziyan did not intend to do that. Instead, he experienced it carefully. I have to say that it has a unique flavor. Yukino Yami curled up quietly on the bed. She was afraid that the person who spoke just now was not Lin Ziyan, and that her father had caused all this, but God did not continue to tease her. Holding the pendant in her hand, she thought that all this was not a dream and that she would see him again soon, and a long-lost smile appeared on her face. When she fell asleep with a smile on her face, the pendant on her chest began to glow faintly, and Yukino Yoshimi's body slowly began to relax. Lin Ziyan withdrew from the cultivation state and took Ziobai away from his legs. After thinking about it last night, he now feels the importance of strength. If he has strength, everything will become easier. Like yesterday, if he was strong enough, he could easily modify Yukino Yoshimi's memory and not leave such a trouble. When he was in China, the practitioners Lin Ziyan came into contact with all focused on the internal development of his body. In Neon, Lin Ziyan only came into contact with one person who claimed to be an onmyoji. Judging from his approach, it seemed that he was taking an external approach, and does not focus on internal development. Lin Ziyan's path is to blossom both internally and externally, because his past life experience tells him that people who are partial to science will not survive the middle stage. But Lin Ziyan is now in a state of mind, but still lacks some qualifications. When Lin Ziyan went to Oda's house today, no one opened the door for him. Although he knew there was someone inside, he couldn't force them to open the door. I could only lower my head and send a message on my phone, and then left silently. Michiko Oda looked at the messages on her phone, and then glanced at Reina Oda in bed. She could only take out the phone that was confiscated by her last night and said to Reina Oda, "Okay, I'll give you the phone back. Get up, Kong Mukun is looking for you." "Then can I see him?" Oda. Reina's head emerged from the bed. "No, Oda." Michiko's tone suddenly became stern. Looking at her daughter's look, Michiko Oda could only say politely, "You are still young and don't understand these things." Seeing that it was almost time, Michiko Oda put her phone on the table and hurried out. Oda. Reina crawled out of bed, and as soon as she picked up her mobile phone, Oda Michiko shot back. She opened the door and shouted to Oda. "Reina, remember to eat, I put lunch in the refrigerator." Oda. Reina panicked and replied, "Yes." Then he picked up his phone and returned to the bed, hiding inside to send Lin Ziyan a message. Lin Ziyan, who was walking on the road, stopped because of the beep of his cell phone. After taking a look at the message, he knew that Oda. Reina was fine, so he moved forward again. Back at school, as soon as he entered the classroom, the whole class's attention was focused on him, talking in low voices in twos and threes. He didn't understand why these unnamed fish didn't stop after so long. When Lin Zion returned to his seat, he saw the lunch box on his table, and he looked at Hosokawa Ryo. Seeing Ryo Hosokawa looking like he was asking for credit, Lin Zion had nothing to say. It would be too hurtful to give it back to her in person, so he could only tell her after school. He has more important things to do now. It was noon before, everyone was eating, and no one knew the relationship between the two of them. After all, they were marginalized people in the two classes, so Zeu, classmate, didn't find it strange. Early this morning, Ryo Hosokawa he put the bento on his table. So many people were watching. Of course, these miscellaneous fish were surprised and they were all talking about the story between the two of them. He has been playing with his mobile phone all morning, and he has listed notes on the white paper on his desk, but they are not notes from class, but some ghost legends nearby. 1. Human-faced dog. 2. Babies in storage boxes. 3. The second underground floor of the hospital. 4. The eyes in the gap. 5. Symbols in the women's restroom. 6. Abandoned school building. 7. Headless horseman. 8. Doll Mary. 9. Hotel mirror. 10. Springfield mansion. Lin Zion glanced at the notes on the paper, crossed out Springfield mansion, and then tore up the paper. He planned to visit these places today, and there might be unexpected gains. Now it's just a matter of waiting for the evening. At noon, Ryo Hosokawa did not come to ask Lin Zion to have lunch together, but went out alone. Seeing this, Lin Zion also picked up the lunch box and followed him out. He was ready to talk to Ryo Hosokawa clearly. Ryo, wait! Lin Zion stopped her downstairs. When Ryo Hosokawa saw Lin Zion looking for her with a lunch box, her face was full of smiles. Lin Zion saw that there were people coming and going here, and was ready to find a place to talk to her. Let's go, find a place with few people. When Ryo Hosokawa heard his words, she lowered her head at the first time, holding the lunch box in both hands and placed it in the middle, and said shyly, "What do you want to do, Qingtian classmate?" "I have something to tell you." Then Lin Zion took Ryo Hosokawa to the place where we were yesterday. "Ryo, didn't I say yesterday that you should not bring me lunch anymore? The words of thanks are enough. Your family is not very well off, so don't waste money anymore." Ryo Hosokawa heard his words, stopped her small movements, and did not speak, and the scene fell into silence for a while. Because she was looking down, Lin Zion didn't know what she was thinking. Although it might hurt her, it was better to suffer a short pain than a long one. Hosokawa Ryo suddenly raised her head, grabbed Lin Zion's arm with one hand, and said excitedly, "Are you concerned about me, Qingtian?" "Yes. That's right, I am." Lin Zion was stunned. "Wait, what's going on? What's going on with this magical brain circuit?" Before Lin Zion could speak, Hosokawa Ryo continued. "If Qingtian is worried about this, there is no need. In fact, my family is, fortunately, it's not as bad as Qingtian thinks. There is no problem with a few meals." Hosokawa Ryo was secretly shocked. "I almost let it slip. I can't put too much pressure on Qingtian. Then can we still have dinner together in the future?" Looking at Hosokawa Ryo's expectant look, how can Lin Zion refuse? "Since you've said that, what else can I say? If you don't mind, I don't care." "Great. Let's eat." This time it was Hosokawa Ryo's turn to pull him away. Seeing Hosokawa Ryo so happy, Lin Zion could only prepare to invite her back for dinner later. The two sat opposite each other, with a few dishes in between. Today she brought pan-fried cod and fried chicken nuggets. The former can be served with a few drops of lemon juice, and the latter is ketchup. The rice is good, but Hosokawa Ryo has been looking at him with a smile. Lin Zion can only use the old method to divert her attention. Rio, have you heard of the legend of the girls' bathroom on the third floor of our school? I heard there are strange symbols in it. Eh? Is there? I haven't heard of it. Hosokawa Rio chatted while eating, her cheeks bulging. Sure enough, it was a wrong decision to talk to her while eating. It's okay, let's talk after we finish eating. Yeah. She probably didn't hear what Lin Ziyan said at all, and her chopsticks never stopped. But Lin Ziyan thought she was cute and silly. After dinner, Lin Ziyan showed her his phone, but she was not surprised at all. There are many such campus ghost stories, and they also happened in my previous school. No, they should happen in every school, Hosokawa Rio recalled. My retirement life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 22. Lin Ziyan's words to her were not surprising. When he was in China, he knew that there were many ghost theories in Japan, which was normal. Moreover, unlike China, there are so many great gods like Zhonglao to suppress ghosts, so ghosts can't turn over at all. Compared with China, ghosts can be said to be rampant in Japan. It may also be related to their training methods. They need to raise little ghosts and become shikigami. However, Lin Ziyan has only seen one yin-yang master and dare not make this conclusion. Rio, are you interested in going with me to see it? Hosokawa Rio looked surprised. Is Qingtian interested in these? This. Lin Ziyan couldn't tell her that he was looking for food, so he could only lie. It can be regarded as going to collect materials. Collect materials? Is Qingtian a writer or a cartoonist? Hosokawa Rio's eyes were almost full of stars. Lin Ziyan quickly, forced, explained, no, I just helped a friend and found these urban legends for him. Oh, so I misunderstood. Hosokawa Rio looked a little regretful. She suddenly remembered something. She had seen similar part-time jobs online before, helping some writers or editors to collect materials. Just taking a few pictures and doing some simple interviews can get a good fee. Is Qingtian doing such a part-time job? Hosokawa Rio thought about it and prepared to cooperate with him. So is Qingtian going to take secret photos in the women's restroom? Lin Ziyan was speechless. In fact, he had to go to other places at night, so he planned to go to the school first, but there were still people in the school just after school. If someone found him in the women's restroom, he would be in trouble. The name of a pervert would follow him for life, so Lin Ziyan wanted Hosokawa Rio to help him keep an eye out. Doesn't Rio want to go? Forget it. I didn't refuse. Hosokawa Rio has now thought of going to the women's restroom together. He didn't expect that the first date would be in the women's restroom. How could he tell others about this? Qingtian is really a pervert. Lin Ziyan didn't know her rich psychological activities. It was just a word to decide whether to go or not. Why did she have so many things? Seeing that Lin Ziyan didn't show any reaction, Hosokawa Rio could only answer, okay. Then wait for me after school. Back in the classroom, Hosokawa Rio secretly glanced at Lin Ziyan, who was playing with his phone. She was ready to discuss Odarena, who told her to apologize so many times, but Odarena still ignored her and didn't tell her the reason. Anyone would be a little angry. I'm going on a date with your brother after school today. Hosokawa Rio also sent a smiley face behind. Impossible. My brother won't date someone like you. Odarena quickly replied to the message, and during the period she also looked up what a date means. Dating means eating delicious food and having fun. Finally replied to me, you still don't take the bait, Hosokawa Rio typed quickly. If you don't believe me, you can ask him. He may go back very late today. Hosokawa Rio looked like a successful scheme, but she was afraid of being seen, so she quickly restrained herself. Hosokawa Rio felt the joy surge from deep inside her heart. As for how Lin Ziyan would explain, she would let it out first. The message prompt of the chat software popped up from the top of the screen. Brother, are you going to date that woman? What? Your classmate, Hosokawa Ryo. Who told you? Yes. Lin Zion looked up at Hosokawa Ryo and found that she was also peeking at him. Hosokawa Ryo saw that she was discovered, stuck out her tongue at him, and turned back. Lin Zion picked up the phone and replied silently. No, she didn't come to school today. I knew that brother would never go on a date with her. Reina, be good, I'll go back and bring you some snacks. But mom won't let me see you. It's okay, I won't go in, just put it at the door, like before. Okay. The afternoon class was over again. With the bell ringing, the teacher also left the classroom. The people in the class dispersed the moment the teacher stepped out of the classroom, and only a few people were left in less than a few minutes. Hosokawa Ryo came to Lin Zion's desk with her school bag, bent down, put her face next to Lin Zion, and looked at his mobile phone. What is Ching Tian doing? Lin Zion took the phone back and said to her, let's go. The remaining few people watched the two of them walk out of the classroom, including Tsuji Tomi. Building number 3 is an old building. As an experimental building, it has been more than 10 years old. The modeled exterior wall is full of traces of history. Qingshan Private High School was acquired and expanded on the basis of the original Tachibana High School. Most of the buildings were newly built in recent years. Buildings 1 to 4 belong to the old campus and have been separated from the center of school construction design. Near the back mountain, few people come here in recent years except for classes. Recently, the school has enough teaching buildings, so the school is also preparing to flatten this side and rebuild it. Now it is a warehouse, archives, and some non-mainstream clubs activity venues. As for mainstream clubs, they all have special places. This place is still popular now, but in a few years, Lin Zion may not see it. Lin Zion looked around outside for a while, then took Ryo Hosokawa into building number 3. Walking along, looking in from the window, the classroom was full of instruments wrapped in cloth, and some old lab tables. Looking out from the corridor, you can see the busy tennis court and the adjacent baseball field. Lin Zion soon came to the women's restroom on the 3rd floor of building number 3, which was recorded on the internet. He did not meet anyone when he came. As far as he knew, there were also several small clubs in building number 3, but for some reason, no one came today. In this way, Hosokawa Ryo seemed redundant, but Lin Zion had no way to ask Hosokawa Ryo to go back. Hosokawa Ryo followed behind him, not saying a word all the way. Seeing that Hosokawa Ryo was absent-minded, Lin Zion had to remind her. Ryo, we're here. Oh, are we there? Hosokawa Ryo responded. Lin Zion shook his head and said to her, Ryo, wait for me here, I'll go in and take a look and come out. Don't I have to go in? Hosokawa Ryo looked at him puzzledly. Ryo, just wait for me here. If I don't come out in 10 minutes and I don't respond to you when you call me, just leave by yourself. Don't worry about me. If there is really a problem inside, Lin Zion is confident that he can protect himself, but if he lets her in, there may be some accidents that he can't take care of. If there is no problem inside, it is not a pleasant thing to visit the women's restroom with a girl. He thinks that people in such aristocratic schools will not leave these things untreated, so the possibility of problems inside is very low. Okay, be careful yourself. There was no worry on Ryo Hosokawa's face. Under Ryo Hosokawa's gaze, Lin Zion slowly walked into the women's restroom. Lin Zion's first impression of this restroom was that it was in disrepair. The tiles on the wall were peeling off, the rusty faucet was dripping, and the light above the head had been broken for a long time. 3 of the 5 locations had broken doors, and the remaining 2 were complete toilet doors. Lin Zion pushed open the half-open doors one by one. The first one had no problem, the second one had no problem, and the third one had no problem. When he pushed open the 4th door, he finally found something. The partitions on both sides were full of scratches, some short and some long, and all very shallow, like scratches made by fingernails. The scratches were very irregular, with many in the upper part but almost none in the lower part. The scratches crisscrossed, making it look like some kind of messy symbols. Linzayan remembered the origin of this place. According to rumors on the internet, there was a school bullying incident here. 5 female high school students brought a classmate from the classroom here, insulted and beat her for 4 hours, and locked her up here. When she was found the next day, the person had died in the toilet. Since that day, every night, there would be a harsh sound here, and some strange symbols began to appear in the toilet where she was locked up. The original text did not mention the fate of the abuser, only that several abusers dropped out of school soon. Linzayan touched the scratches. Even though the partitions on both sides were made of wooden composite boards, it was impossible to make such scratches with just fingernails. Even though Linzayan had no spiritual consciousness now, he could still feel the resentment here. In fact, he felt it as soon as he came in. The inside and the outside were like 2 poles, with a huge difference. The feeling of oppression and coldness inside were not there outside. It seemed that the school had indeed asked someone to come and deal with it, but the handling was not clean. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 23. In other words, if there is so much resentment, the people hired by the school can only seal it before it develops, instead of removing it. However, Linzayan had to admit that there was something about sealing the people here, at least nothing happened to them for so many years. Sigh, I didn't expect that there are actually goods here, Linzayan sighed. Come on out and let's talk. There was no reaction from the surroundings, so Linzayan was not surprised and continued. Don't you want revenge? Before he could finish speaking, resentment poured in and he rushed towards Linzayan. However, Linzayan didn't show any signs of panic. His whole body suddenly emitted a faint golden light. When the resentment touched the golden light, it was like water splashed on hot oil. It dissipated quickly, scaring the resentment and retreating at a faster speed. The resentment began to gather in front of Linzayan. Linzayan looked at the rolling resentment in front of him and wanted to eat it in one bite. Have you calmed down? Do you want to do it again? Linzayan looked at it indifferently and took a step forward. Resentment quickly retreated and hit the wall, which emitted white light again and bounced it back. Linzayan looked at the resentment huddled in front of him and laughed. Okay, at least you can be considered a resentful spirit, so don't be so funny. Linzayan judged that it had a certain amount of intelligence, but did not know how to attack and could only rely on instinctive reactions. Seeing that it could not even transform into a human body, Linzayan raised his hand and cast a few more spells into the resentment. The resentment stopped churning, like a piece of plasticine being pulled apart, and gradually took on a human shape. Resentment has taken on a human form, looking like a little girl, but without facial features. This is based on its own instinct, and should be what it looked like when it was alive. It looked at Linzayan. Because it had no facial features, Linzayan could only feel its eyes. I won't talk nonsense to you anymore. I will help you get revenge. After revenge, you will be mine. Do you agree? Seeing that the resentful spirit was hesitant, Linzayan added, if you don't agree, I will kill you now. His words scared the resentful spirit into a ball again. If you don't refuse, it's considered as an agreement. Linzayan waved his hand and sucked the resentful spirit into his hand. Ignoring the shivering resentful spirit, he took out another seal and stuffed the resentful spirit into the seal. Because he didn't expect to harvest this time, he didn't prepare any containers. He didn't expect that there was actually one here. He wanted to swallow it in one gulp, but he still had to raise it, so now he had to make do with it. He made the seal a few days ago. In Neon, a seal is something that is often used, even when receiving express delivery. It is similar to a signature. A guest has moved in, and the appearance of the seal has also changed. It has changed from green with white to red. If you look closely, you can see a flowing blush. It doesn't look aesthetic at all, and this red it was black and had an evil aura, and you could tell at a glance that it was not a good thing. Lin Zion didn't believe in cause and effect, but he wanted to be honest. When faced with the resentful ghost in the vial, he would eat it in one bite. Firstly, he was in urgent need of replenishment. Secondly, he killed the original owner and avenged them, so he could eat it in one bite. Ate it, and this. Lin Zion didn't care. He put away the seal and stamped his foot on the ground. Then a sound of broken mirrors came from the surroundings. Cracks appeared on the ground and surrounding walls. After a while, the space collapsed. The first thing he entered was the space where the resentful spirit was sealed, because when he was at the door of the toilet, Lin Zion discovered that there was a seal here, which could also be called the inner space. However, due to Lin Zion's recultivation of San Gong, his spiritual consciousness was sealed by himself. In addition, this seal was quite unique, so he only discovered the clues when he arrived at the door. Now that the seal has been broken, the real toilet is revealed. The toilet still looked the same, but there was a black magic circle in the center. Lin Zion took a look and saw that there was nothing strange about the magic circle. What was strange was the porcelain doll in the middle of the magic circle. The doll is a kneeling statue of a little girl, about the size of a fist, wearing a kimono, with a classic pot-shaped lid on its head, and a naive smile on its face. It looks like an ordinary porcelain doll, with nothing strange about it. Lin Zion picked it up and looked at it, and found something interesting. Is this a special method? No wonder. Kingtian-san, are you okay yet? Hosokawa Ryo's voice came from outside. Here we come, Lin Zion responded, and the next step was to deal with the scene. After a brief tidying up, he waved his hand to wipe away the magic circle. Lin Zion had already broken the original blindfold. If he didn't wipe away the magic circle, more trouble would inevitably occur. When he was going out, Lin Zion saw a trouble repair sign at the door. While Lin Zion's attention was focused on the sign, another voice reached his ears. Shigeki Aota-kun, what are you doing here? Lin Zion raised his head in surprise and saw that the person next to Hosokawa Ryo was actually Miyamune Ryo. Hello, teacher Gongzone Ryo. Lin Zion greeted her with a smile. Why did you bring Hosokawa Ryo-san here? However, it seemed that Gongzone Ryo didn't appreciate Lin Zion's overtures. Instead, she put on a very serious expression, which made people look a little scared. Coupled with her status as a teacher, her deterrent effect on students was simply a critical blow. It's just for ordinary students, like Ryo Hosokawa, who lowers his head next to Miyazune Ryo, and salty fish kings like Lin Zion, they still talk and laugh with her. There is no school rule that prohibits coming here, teacher Miyazaki Ryo, and now it's over school. I don't think I need your approval to take my classmates somewhere to play. This book is slow to warm up, you can collect it? My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 24. Seeing that Gongzone Liu's face began to turn red and she felt like she was about to explode, Lin Zion quickly slowed down his tone. After all, he would have something to ask her in the future. Thank you for your concern, teacher Gongzone Liu. We just agreed to go to the school together after school to get familiar with the school. We just went to the toilet casually. There is no need to make a fuss. Then why did you come out of the women's toilet? Do you want me to tell everyone that you have a habit of going to the women's toilet and I caught you on the spot? Gongzone Liu asked. This. Lin Zion could only say MMP, but he still couldn't say it. You don't have to quibble. Classmate Hosokawa Ryo has told me everything. Lin Zion glanced at Hosokawa Ryo, looked up and sighed, alas. It turned out that he was betrayed by his teammates, and there was nothing he could do. I went in and saw that nothing strange happened. Could it be that teacher Gongzone knew what happened that year? You, what do you know? This place is very dangerous. It's not for students like you to come here. Gongzone Liui's originally sharp eyes began to wander, and she didn't dare to look directly at him. Lin Zian did not ask Gongzone Liui, but said to Hosokawa Rio, you go back first, I have something to say to Gongzone teacher. Hosokawa Rio, who had been paddling, was suddenly called out, stunned for a moment, and then looked at Lin Zian. Lin Zian saw that Gongzone Liui's mental state was becoming more and more unstable. While staring at Gongzone Liui, he whispered to Hosokawa Rio, go back now. Hosokawa Rio didn't know what she was thinking, she turned around and ran away, and Lin Zian seemed to see her crying. But now Lin Zian didn't have time to care about her, because the seal in his bag began to heat up. If you look at it now, you can see that the speed of the red blush is accelerating, because the vengeful spirit is attacking the seal, he said. If you don't want to be torn apart, you should be honest. Lin Zian activated the restriction in the seal. A scream came from the void. When the vengeful spirit was a little quieter, Gongzone Lihui was in trouble. After hearing the screams, she seemed to remember something, held her head with both hands, called Chihiro several times, and then fainted. Lin Zian hurried forward to support her, and Gongzone Lihui leaned limply on his shoulder. It seems that even if Gongzone Lihui is not the abuser, she is also an important person, but now the vengeful spirit has no previous memory. Gongzone Lihui slowly opened her eyes, and what came into her sight was the white ceiling. She turned her head and looked around, surrounded by white curtains. She was very familiar with this place. It was the school's health room. She was stunned for a moment. Why am I here? Right, Gongzone Lihui woke up instantly and wanted to get out of bed, but a word stopped her. You finally woke up, are you okay? It was already past 5 o'clock, and she had been asleep for almost 2 hours. She saw a figure playing with a porcelain doll by the window facing the sunset. When she got used to the sunlight, she found that the figure was Lin Zian. Seeing that Lin Zian was fine, Gongzone Liui was relieved and sat on the bed again. Before she could digest what happened today, Lin Zian asked. Tell me what happened that year, or tell me who Chihiro is. How did you know the name Chihiro? Lin Zian knew that Gongzone Liui would definitely not cooperate with him, so Lin Zian would not be polite to her. Are you one of the 5 abusers back then? Lin Zian got to the point as soon as he opened his mouth, ready to bluff her. Lin Zian felt that she should not be one of the abusers. If she was an abuser, she would definitely not dare to come back, let alone so close to the toilet door. Gongzone Liui ignored Lin Zian's question and was silent. You should know something. I tell you that this is the last chance to solve this matter. If you miss this time, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Seeing that she was still silent, Lin Zian didn't want to care about it. Anyway, he would just let the ghost out and it would be over. Now he asked Gongzone Liui just to know the role she played in it. It's okay if her curiosity can't be satisfied. Seeing Lin Zian about to leave, Gongzone Liui finally couldn't help it. Don't go, she almost shouted, but she suppressed her voice. It can be seen that she was struggling and in pain, but this is none of Lin Zian's business. You didn't cherish the opportunity you were given, and now you want it again when it's gone. Who do you think you are? Lin Zian slowly walked out of the door of the health room. Lin Zian outside the door heard a faint cry, and he chuckled. He had a lot of things to do, so how could he waste time on her? I have to buy snacks for Odarena later, and I have to go to see Yukino Gma tomorrow. There is also a big project to complete. Lin Zian looked at the porcelain doll in his hand. Reina, I'm here. Lin Zian patted the door, and when he felt someone behind the door, he continued, I put the things at the door. Remember not to eat too much at once. I'm going back first. Call me if you have anything. Lin Ziyan bought some fruits and snacks for her, put down the bag, and went back home. As soon as the door opened, Xiaobai, who used to pull at his trouser legs, looked at him warily, or more precisely, at the bag in his hand. I don't recognize you anymore, Lin Ziyan joked with it. After putting the things in the basement and coming out again, Xiaobai dared to approach him. You are afraid of even such a small thing, how can you be my pet? Lin Ziyan caught it and stroked it hard twice. Lin Ziyan was actually quite surprised. He didn't expect that Xiaobai could feel such things at such a young age. It turned out that the folk legend that black cats can communicate with spirits is true. He checked the goat milk left for it this morning and found it was all gone. He made milk powder for Xiaobai again and fed it little by little. After feeding, Lin Ziyan checked its teeth and it seemed that it could be fed with fish and cat food. Lin Ziyan planned to wait until it grew up a little bit and then teach it to practice. In fact, it can't be called practice. It's just some small techniques of practicing qi, which can make it live longer, but it must first open its spiritual wisdom. After Xiaobai was full, he liked to lie on Lin Ziyan's thighs, either sleeping or lying lazily. Lin Ziyan touched its fur. It had eaten well these days, and its fur became smooth and felt good. While stroking Xiaobai, Lin Ziyan called Yukino Takemi. Hello, this is Yukino Takemi. May I ask what Mr. Shigeki can do for you? Lin Ziyan knew it was the secretary named Heizu Chizuru as soon as he heard it. Is this Miss Heizu Chizuru? Is Uncle Yukino free now? Heizu Chizuru heard Lin Ziyan's words and immediately remembered this boy who left a deep impression on her. She replied to Lin Ziyan's request. Mr. Yukino is in a meeting. Do you need him to listen? No, it's not important. Ask Uncle Yukino to call me after the meeting. Okay. Then there was a busy tone. After that, Lin Ziyan waited for almost half an hour before Yukino Takemi called. Hello, Kingtian-kun. As for how Yukino Takemi addressed Lin Ziyan, the two had discussed it before. In the past, Yukino Takemi called Lin Ziyan Ziyan because he could speak Chinese. But now Lin Ziyan came here to avoid the limelight, so he used the name from Japan. Lin Ziyan simply asked Yukino Takemi to call him Qingtian, but the old-fashioned Yukino Takemi liked to add a honorific. Lin Ziyan didn't care much about the name. It was just a code name. What was important was the identity behind the name. Well, Uncle Yukino, I want to ask, do you know what happened in the female toilet of the third laboratory building of Aoyama Academy? The other side paused for a moment, and Lin Ziyan heard the sound of keyboard keys. Aota-kun is referring to a school bullying case that occurred in the junior high school of Tachibana High School, the predecessor of Aoyama High School. If one person died, it should be. I do know a little about this. Is there any unusual movement in the toilet? Hearing this, Lin Ziyan already knew that Yukino Takemi knew that there was something in the toilet. Lin Ziyan did not answer his question, but asked him instead. Tell me what you know. Yukino Takemi did not care about Lin Ziyan's attitude and continued. I don't know much. At that time, I and several partners were planning to invest in a high school for our children to go to school. It was too difficult to invest in downtown Tokyo, so we chose a more remote place. We came across Tachibana High School, which was almost closed down because of this incident. We didn't believe in these things at the time. If we bought Tachibana High School, we could save a lot of procedures. Buying a school on the verge of bankruptcy would make our budget much more ample, which would be much easier than starting all over again. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 25. Although he strongly condemned Yukino Tekkai's behavior of buying a school for his children, Lin Ziyan did not rush him and listened slowly from the beginning of the story. Sui Tekkai calmed down for a moment and continued. Within 3 days of contact with Tachibana High School, we decided on the acquisition plan. We didn't have too much doubt about the school's urging at the time, and we signed the agreement quickly. In fact, they were willing to lower the price again, and the reason was very reasonable. Because every day it is delayed, the school will spend more, and now it seems that they want to get out as soon as possible. Do you think we are stupid for taking over without even investigating? Swiwilhei suddenly changed his mind and asked about Lin Zion. It's indeed a bit unbelievable. I don't know about other people, but with your mind, I don't think you will be unclear about the risks in the price. Ha, Switek Kai smiled bitterly and continued, you are from China, and you don't know the situation here in Neon. No matter what happens here, it will eventually be related to ghosts, so for that kind of campus that is ruined, we almost ignored the strange rumors, and there were no serious cases at that time. We thought everything was just a rumor made by parents to put pressure on the school. When did you realize there was a problem? We had contacted the police officers who handled the case before the acquisition. Their reaction was that this was just an accidental death caused by ordinary school bullying, and the Metropolitan Police Department closed the case quickly. We also organized people to check, but they did not. Nothing strange happened until more than a year after the renovation started. Something unexpected happened. That was the first time I came into contact with that kind of thing. Tekkai Yukino lit a cigarette, took a deep breath, and then slowly spit out the cigarette. He did not take a second puff, and his raised hand stopped in mid-air. Eyes slightly squinted, as if recalling some unpleasant things. At that time, we were preparing to demolish all the old teaching buildings, but when we were about to demolish the third building, one of the workers went crazy and said, "That little girl is looking at us, I saw it, we will all die," and so on, so the matter was uncovered again. In order to investigate this matter, I went there in person. I remember it very clearly. That night, I not only saw her, but I also heard to that harsh sound. Yukino Tekkai didn't know whether he was lucky or scared. This was the first time he came into contact with the true face of the world. For this new school, we bought a large area of land, ordered a batch of building materials, and spent a lot of money on the relationship. Many buildings have already started to be built. The situation at that time could no longer stop, but the workers, they stopped working and asked to leave. When we were at our wits' end, Master Blackfoot appeared. Hearing this, Lin Zion interrupted Swiwilhei's words. Didn't you think about why he appeared in front of you at that time? The situation at that time was not as simple as you think. We also invited some famous masters, but it was of no use. The appearance of Master Blackfoot can be said to be a help in times of need. Switek said an idiom with a non-standard pronunciation, which made Lin Zion feel awkward. I took it for granted a little too much. The Blackfoot Master will use some tricks to gain your trust, right? Indeed, he allowed us to see the girl during the day as well. Okay, I probably guessed what happened. Let me just tell you how he handled it. King Tian-kun seems to have a problem with Master Blackfoot. I'll explain this after you finish. Yukino Tekkai paused for a moment, as if thinking about what to say, and then continued after a while. I don't remember some details very clearly. I remember that he took out a porcelain doll and went in by himself. When he came out, he told us that the evil spirit had been sealed by him. It did not happen after school. A supernatural incident, but we didn't dare to demolish the remaining old buildings. Building number 3 was renumbered later. Lin Zion pondered for a moment and said something that made Swiwilhei unbelievable. You have all been lied to. That girl's death was not an accident, and that Blackfoot was not a master. This. Don't ask yet. I will go to CGMA tomorrow. Then I will bring something to show you. You will know after watching it. Switek felt so uncomfortable when he was forcibly interrupted by Lin Zion. He said half the words but didn't say the other half. If it had been anyone else, he would have been beaten to death long ago. There was no way he couldn't afford to offend Lin Zion. If something happened to him, let alone Lin Zion's father, Yukino Yami would be the first to let him go. Thinking that he had stuck Yukino Tekkai in the neck, Lin Zion took the initiative to explain, "There are some things that I couldn't explain on the phone, and I have to prepare something. The truth will be revealed tomorrow. Good night, Uncle Yukino." When Yukino Tekkai was about to hang up the phone, Lin Zion suddenly said something again. "By the way, if I'm not wrong, that Blackfoot might be a bit dangerous, so don't touch him yet." Although Swai Tekkai didn't know what Lin Zion wanted to do, he was willing to listen to suggestions. "Okay, I understand." After ending the phone call with Yukino Tekkai, Lin Zion took Xiaobai to the basement. Put Xiaobai on the table and said to him, "Be good, I'll let you see it today, so that you won't make such a fuss every day. Take out the seal and the porcelain doll, and release the vengeful spirit inside the seal." It was suppressed by the formation that Lin Zion arranged in the basement just as it was about to move. "Be quiet, I'll deal with you later." Lin Zion directly broke off the head of the porcelain doll and poured the contents into a bowl that had just been taken from the kitchen. A pile of white powder and a small bunch of black hair. Because of Lin Zion's violent destruction, the internal formation of the porcelain doll began to break, and the energy began to riot and slowly spread out. Lin Zion mobilized the formation, collected the energy, and then injected it into the vengeful spirit. The vengeful spirit began to become distorted because of the sudden energy, and let out a soul-level roar. Seeing that it was about to collapse, Lin Zion intervened and cast a series of spells, and the entire basement was illuminated by the light it emitted. Seeing that Xiaobai next to him trembled, lying on the table, not even daring to scream. With the repeated flushing of energy and Lin Zion's efforts, the appearance of the vengeful spirit began to change dramatically. The originally erratic body began to become fixed, and the thick resentment shrouding it gradually faded and condensed into a black mist. The things inside also slowly leaked out, a curled-up bald faceless little girl. After taking a look at the vengeful spirit floating in the air, Lin Zion threw the seal over. As soon as the seal came into contact with the black mist condensed by the resentment, it began to devour it. After a while, it swallowed up the black mist and the seal turned black. Lin Zion took the seal out of thin air, put it back, took out a bunch of black hair just now, untied it, and scattered it to the vengeful spirit. The hair magically did not float around, but instead concentrated on the vengeful spirit and then attached to it. As time went on, the hair attached to the vengeful spirit began to fall off one by one, and the vengeful spirit's smooth face slowly showed its facial features, and hair began to grow on its head. However, it still had no sign of waking up and was still sleeping. Lin Zion also started the next step. He opened his mouth to say something, but no sound came out. Instead, the resentful spirit, which had been silent all the time, began to frown and tremble slightly. As Lin Zion spoke more, the resentful spirit moved more and more. Finally, it suddenly screamed, spread its limbs, and a shockwave centered on it broke out, but it was easily blocked by the formation. Looking at the resentful spirit that woke up, Lin Zion breathed a sigh of relief. With his current cultivation, it was very reluctant to do such a thing, but it still succeeded. Originally, I wanted to eat it in one bite to replenish my body, but now I have lost a lot, and it will take some time to recover. Do you still remember your previous memories? Who are you? What happened to me? The resentful spirit obviously hasn't realized its changes yet. Think about it yourself first. Lin Zion simply packed up and went back to his room to sleep, leaving the resentful spirit alone in the basement. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 26. Ring, ring, ring. The bell for class rang, and the people who had just gathered in groups of 3 or 2 returned to their seats, restrained their voices, and waited for the teacher to arrive. The door was pushed open, and Gong Zong Liwi walked in. The first class today was her English class, but unlike the past, Gong Zong Liwi was wearing 2 dark circles under her eyes that could not be covered even by thick foundation. As soon as she entered the door, she glanced at Lin Xian's seat, then opened the book and started the class, even omitting the pre-class interaction that she usually liked to use to mobilize students' enthusiasm. However, Lin Xian did not come today, and the seat was empty. The 50-minute class was over quickly, but Lin Xian still did not come, and did not ask for leave. Gong Zong Liwi frequently looked at Lin Xian's seat. For other students, this was just an occupational disease of teachers, paying attention to a student who skipped class, but for Hosokawa Ryo, who knew a little, there was definitely something wrong. Yesterday, Ryo Hosokawa did not go home directly. She thought Lin Xian would come out to find her, so she waited downstairs, but she did not expect that she saw Lin Xian carrying Gong Zong Liwi downstairs. Ryo Hosokawa followed him all the way to the health room. Gong Zong Liwi was obviously unconscious at that time, and the two stayed in there for a long time. Ryo Hosokawa looked at Gong Zong Liwi, who was absent-minded on the podium, and then looked back at Lin Xian's empty seat, then lowered her head and buried her face in the shadow. No one knew what she was thinking. Ah, comfortable, it feels good to stay in bed. Lin Xian was in a good mood today. Last night was a blessing in disguise. He finally transformed a little spiritual energy. In fact, spiritual energy is no different from other energies, but Lin Xian's abilities all rely on spiritual energy to play a role. Sure enough, we can't keep working behind closed doors. Repeating the path of the previous life is not feasible. Practice is the only criterion for testing the truth. No matter in which world, energy is diverse, such as Qi, Sha, Yuan, Nian, Yuan, etc. Mortals talk about heat energy, electric energy, wind energy, etc., and Long Hushan practices Qi. There is no difference in energy, most of which can be converted into each other. The difference is only in the application. The problem is that the special energy in this world is extracted from one's own body, while Lin Xian's spiritual energy in his previous life was absorbed from the outside, just like people now are wells, and cultivation is to dig the well bigger and deeper, so that more water will flow out. The cultivation of people in the previous life is a process from a cup to a bucket, and the more water is contained. Lin Xian initially thought about how to use the method of running spiritual power to run Qi, so he also practiced Qi and extracted Qi from his body, but the problem came again. Maybe the two are not compatible, or maybe his Yuan Shen was rejected by this world, resulting in no progress for so many years. Finally, last night, maybe his Yuan Shen nerves had been recast, or maybe his power was exhausted. He grasped a ray of heaven in the dark, and completed the transformation with resentment. He fed the spiritual energy back to his body and refined it again, and the first spiritual energy in this world appeared. Now he no longer needs to bury his head in hard practice every day. With this little trigger, he can let it circulate in his body on its own. Practice is like breathing, and it becomes an instinctive reaction. The only surprise today is that Xiaobai is not in his bed. Damn. That's not right. I seem to have forgotten Xiaobai in the basement. In order to capture the feeling in the dark, he hurried out last night, didn't even eat, didn't take a bath, and forgot Xiaobai in the basement. When he opened the door of the basement, he saw Xiaobai still lying on the table. Seeing Lin Xian coming, Xiaobai dared to jump over from the table, barked a few times viciously, and scratched Lin Xian's trouser legs with its little claws. With Xiaobai's appearance, its viciousness is even more adorable. Okay, I was wrong. Please forgive me, Xiaobai. I'll take you to eat delicious food today. Lin Xian picked up Xiaobai and stroked its fur. After comforting Xiaobai, he looked at the vengeful spirit that had been confronting Xiaobai all night and had not moved at all. Xiaobai just thought it was a confrontation. It can't be called a vengeful spirit, because her resentment was sucked dry by Lin Xian last night, and now what is left is the spirit body. Why don't you put on your clothes? Didn't I teach you? And, what's your name? Chihiro Atsuki. Chihiro Atsuki looked down at her state, and a set of school uniforms began to emerge on her body. Do you remember? How did you die? As she recalled, the spirit body began to become unstable, and a trace of resentment spread out again. Okay, let me tell you, you were not tortured and beaten to death, but someone detained your soul, causing you to feel resentment in the endless and repeated humiliation, and then you were treated as a dead person and sent to the incinerator, where you were burned alive. Do you see this porcelain doll? Lin Xian picked up the broken porcelain doll. It feels very familiar. Wei Mu. Chihiro stared at the doll and said. Of course it is familiar, this is made of your ashes, and you were trapped in it before. Okay, now I will teach you a ghost way of practice, you will naturally know it when you practice to a certain level. That's right, there are ghost ways in this world, and this practice was obtained when he was handling a case. Although it is only a fragment, it was completed by him. Lin Xian didn't care about Wei Mu. Chihiro's opinion, and raised his hand and pointed at her. He took out the seal again and took back the stupid Wei Mu. Chihiro. How can he have no memory and be so stupid? Did he fail? Lin Xian muttered to himself and carried Xiaobai out of the basement. In order to make amends for Xiaobai, he fed Xiaobai with his own hands and even used his spiritual energy to stroke it. It took a long time to coax Xiaobai. Be good and stay at home. I'll come back to give you a snack tonight. Lin Xian abandoned Xiaobai at home again and went out to hang out. Coming out of the subway station, Lin Xian looked around, chose a direction, and walked out slowly. After coming here once, Lin Xian naturally knew how to get there. Carrying a bag of vegetables bought downstairs, Lin Xian knocked on Shui Jiamei's door. Is Jiamei at home? I'm coming. After waiting for a while, no one opened the door and no one responded. Lin Xian was about to knock on the door again, but as soon as he raised his hand, the door was opened. Shui Jiamei, wearing pajamas and slippers, jumped out from inside and hung on Lin Xian. Although Shui Jiamei was not heavy, her legs got stuck in Lin Xian's legs, and Lin Xian was in a dilemma. Okay, Jiamei, get down first, it will be bad if someone sees us. No one will see us, this floor is mine. Awesome, I couldn't even say anything to refute. Lin Xian could only helplessly say, be good, listen, Jiamei, go get me a pair of slippers, okay. Shui Jiamei then got down from him and turned back. Lin Xian closed the door and asked her, where is the nanny? Why did you open the door? I fired her. Looking at Shui Jiamei with an expressionless face, Lin Xian teased, Jiamei has such a bad temper, what will she do if she can't get married in the future? I don't want to get married, I want to marry you. Shui Jiamei spoke more and more quietly, and Lin Xian smiled awkwardly, pretending not to hear the rest of the words. Without a nanny to cook, what did Jiamei eat yesterday? Lin Xian put the things away and saw that the kitchen refrigerator was already half empty. I can cook by myself. Lin Xian was a little surprised, but he still encouraged her. Jiamei is amazing. There are not many women who can cook now. This kind of thinking is not good. Does Aoni-san like girls who can cook? Who wouldn't like it? Lin Xian smiled. Then will Aoni-san marry me? What? Who can stand this way of thinking? Lin Xian smiled bitterly and changed the subject. Jiamei didn't have a nightmare last night. If Aoni-san and I sleep together, there will be no nightmares. Seeing her stroking the pendant with a happy look on her face, Lin Xian was speechless. It was the pendant I gave her, not me. Lin Xian knew without thinking that if Yukino Takemi heard it, the consequences would be serious. Lin Zian didn't want to talk anymore. He looked at the clock and it was not time to cook yet, so he said to Shui Jiamei, "Jiamei, go lie down on the bed first, I'll help you check." After washing his hands, he found Shui Jiamei still standing there. Lin Zian asked in confusion, "What's wrong, Jiamei, are you uncomfortable?" "This is my first time, will Anasan be responsible?" Shui Jiamei looked up and looked at him. Shui Jiamei's face was full of red clouds and her eyes were full of water. "Damn! Open the door quickly, I want to get off, let me go." "Don't play anymore, if you do this again, I'll go back," Lin Zian said seriously with a tight face. Oh, Shui Jiamei went back to her room honestly and lay on the bed. Lin Zian dried his hands and followed him in. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 27. Lin Zian looked at Yukino Yoshimi lying on the bed, and for some reason, a feeling of distress arose spontaneously. "Lie down, don't resist later, relax your mind, I won't harm you. Anasan, can you please be gentle? Jiamei is afraid of pain." Yukino Yoshimi's body trembled slightly, showing a very forced smile. Lin Zian nodded, then put his hand on her forehead and said to her in a very strange tone, "It won't hurt, relax." After Yukino Yami fell asleep and Lin Zian calmed down, he was ready to use his soul to find out. The last time he really just did a physical examination, after all, he is not a pervert, why would he touch other people's souls when he has nothing to do, and now he wants to see what is in Yukino Yoshimi's mind. From the outside, Lin Zian didn't move much and was still sitting next to the bed, but a small figure that just appeared above him had already entered Sui Jiamei's coffin. Time passed slowly, and sweat appeared on Lin Zian's forehead. His brows were furrowed and his eyes kept moving under his eyelids. A golden light suddenly appeared above Yukino Kamei's head and penetrated into Lin Zian's eyebrows. Then Lin Zian slowly opened his eyes and glanced at Yukino Kamei. Lin Zian dialed Sui Wuhei's phone number, and this time he answered. "Where are you?" Lin Zian said straight to the point without any polite words. Yukino Tekkai also heard the problem and just said, "I will go back now." The two met again in the living room of Yukino Tekkai's house. "You should take a look at this first." Lin Zian took out the seal and released Chihiro Weimu, who looked confused. Yukino Tekkai was also startled, but he still controlled himself. Apart from being a little surprised at the first time, he still maintained his cold image later on. "This is the victim, Chihiro Waikiki, who I just rescued yesterday," Lin Zian introduced to Sui Tekkai, and then he took Chihiro Waikiki back. "Is this what you said you would prepare yesterday?" Sui Tekkai stared at the seal on the table, as if he was afraid that she would suddenly come out again. "Don't worry, she's safe," Lin Zian said nonchalantly, "she didn't know it was you who burned her body." "Well, it can't be said to be a body. To be precise, she wasn't dead at that time." Sui Wuhei's pupils contracted suddenly and then relaxed quickly. He didn't understand what Lin Zian wanted to do, so he could only say tentatively, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to lie to you, I just—" "Stop," Lin Zian interrupted him, "I don't want to deal with your nonsense. Yukino Yoshimi is lying on it. I have processed her memory. She will be fine after a while. Now help me. Just a favor and we'll be settled." "What are you busy with?" Sui Wuhei asked carefully. "I'm going to withdraw some money later, please help me wash it." Sui Tekkai was stunned when he heard it. So simple? Where was he going to get the money? Not sure what he was thinking of, Sui Wuhei suddenly asked Lin Zian. "You want to attack Master Blackfoot?" "Clever." After receiving Lin Zian's affirmative reply, Sui Tekkai did not express any affirmation. Instead, he felt that he wanted to persuade him. In his opinion, Lin Zian was no match for Master Blackfoot at such a young age, no matter how powerful he was. If Mr. Qingtian is short of money, I can advance it for you. There is no need to do such a thing. Lin Zion saw Sui Wilhei's hesitation and chuckled. You think I touch your VIP just for money? You're wrong. I don't need a reason to touch him. As for the money, it's just because I make a move and I can't leave empty-handed. Sui Tekkai looked at the man in front of him and didn't understand his arrogance. Lin Zion didn't intend to continue explaining, but instead asked him. I will find a reason for you. I remember you once said that if you ask someone to erase Yukino Yoshimi's memory, you won't invite this Blackfoot, right? Sui Wilhei looked at Lin Zion's strange expression and asked with some confusion, yes, what's wrong? Haha, I originally planned to deal with Yukino Yoshimi's memory tonight, but guess what I found? Blackfoot once tried to control your daughter. It's impossible. I was there at the time and he didn't do anything. You don't understand the abilities of people like us at all. Just like if I want to control you, you won't know that you are controlled by me. You will only blindly obey me. Do you know why Yukino Yoshimi is so dependent on me? At first I thought it was a sequelae left over from that time, but after careful investigation, I found out that it was because Blackfoot had triggered the power I had left in her body. It was precisely because of my power that Yukino Yami was not taken over by Blackfoot. Having always relied on my strength to fight off the Blackfeet, it was my strength she relied on, not me. This is impossible. Seeing Sui Wilhei who was about to collapse, Lin Zion added another fuel to his anger. Have you ever thought about what if Yukino Yoshimi was really controlled by him? Don't say it again, I promise you. Don't worry, that piece of trash Blackfoot can't even deal with the power I accidentally left behind many years ago. Now he's meat on the chopping block. I'm going to get ready now. Lin Zi sat calmly on the sofa and watched Yukino Tekkai walk out. After finishing this today, I can lie down at home peacefully. Sui Tekkai took him to a remote villa, and then he asked the driver to go back first. According to Yukino Tekkai, Blackfoot lived alone, and this villa was built for him by another person in order to befriend Blackfoot. The two of them stood outside the gate. Yukino Tekkai was about to make a call, but Lin Zion stopped him, broke the door lock, kicked open the door, and walked in openly. A loser did not need Lin Zion to be sneaky. Sui, what are you doing? Lin Zion made such a big noise, even a fool knew something was wrong. He came down from the second floor alone. On the stairs, Lin Zion finally saw this Blackfoot master. Hiju is a middle-aged man with good looks. His years of dressing up have made him think that he is really a tall man, and he really gives off the feeling of a tall man when he walks. Are you Master Blackfoot? Lin Zion said angrily. Hearing Lin Zion's teasing, Hiju frowned and shouted, Shueye, who did you bring here? Yukino Tekkai ignored him and just looked at him. It seems that I need to give you some strength to know who is the master here. Blackfoot turned the ring on his hand, and a resentful spirit came out and rushed towards Lin Zion and the others. You see, ghosts are generally divided into wandering spirits, resentful spirits, and evil ghosts. After evil ghosts, they are no longer ghosts. Those are almost condensed into entities. Those like this are considered resentful spirits. They have no lethality. Lin Zion, while introducing Yukino Tekkai, he pointed. When the resentful spirit came to his side, Lin Zion caught it casually. Look, it's not that scary. It's all about scaring yourself. Lin Zion handed the resentful spirit on his hand to Sui Wilhei. Sui Tekkai glanced at the resentful spirit and then said to Lin Zion, he is going to run away. Lin Zion looked at Blackfoot who wanted to run away, smiled, and put the resentful spirit away. If he can't run away, he will come back on his own. Then Lin Zion started shopping by himself. Lin Zion and Yukino Tekkai were sitting on the sofa, looking at Blackfoot who was being chased by Chihiro Tomu. Okay, come here, Lin Zion said, and Waymukyunsun stopped. After hearing this, Blackfoot felt like he was being pardoned. He ran over and knelt in front of Lin Zion. "Let me go, I don't dare anymore. Don't be nervous. I'm just short of money. I asked Master Blackfoot to borrow some money to sign this." Lin Zion threw the document to the ground. Hija picked up the document and was about to read it when Lin Zion spoke again. "Hurry up, before I change my mind." "Yes, yes, yes." Blackfoot grabbed the pen and signed the contract without even reading it, then handed it over respectfully. "If you want money, you should have said it earlier. If things get like this, Blackfoot, will lose face." Lin Zion took the document and threw it to Switekkai. "Uncle Swino, that's enough." Yukino Tekkai looked at the dog like Blackfoot and said solemnly, "Okay, I will take care of the rest." "Where did you learn these things? Don't try to lie to me." "I hate lies." Lin Zion played with the ring he pulled from Blackfoot's hand. "You stole it?" "I don't know anything." "Don't kill me." "Where is the thing?" "Study, second row, sixth book." "Kyungsoon, go get it for me." Lin Zion was sitting on the sofa, flipping through an unnamed notebook. "Humph." Lin Zion waved his hand, and the book in his hand spontaneously ignited. The disgusting and curious methods recorded in the book are not methods of cultivation at all, and the Devil's Path does not do this either. It is more like the items of some cult. "Take me to your basement now, hurry up." Lin Zion lightly kicked Blackfoot on the shoulder. There was nothing he could do, he would die with such force. "Yes, yes, yes." Blackfoot obediently led the way. Lin Zion stopped Swy Wilhei, who was about to get up. "Uncle Swy, I don't recommend you to read the following things, they are quite heavy." Yukino Tekkai hesitated for a moment, but decided to go down together. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 28. The three of them passed by a row of empty dog houses and came to a place similar to a garage. Blackfoot opened the door and pulled up a piece of floorboard, and a disgusting smell wafted out. Lin Zion didn't know why the entrance to the basement was in the backyard just now, but now he knows why. "Hurry up, don't wait any longer." Lin Zion pointed at the entrance. Blackfoot went in first, followed by Lin Zion. As soon as we entered, it suddenly became quiet, with only the sound of the exhaust fan rotating. It seemed that it had been soundproofed. When we were almost at the bottom, there was a sound of dragging chains. "Owner." Two naked women crawled over like dogs, the collars around their necks dragging heavy chains. The two women squatted in front of Hiju, keeping their eyes on Hiju, as if they didn't see Lin Zion and Yukino Tekkai behind Hiju. Yukino Tekkai has obviously never seen such a thing, and the shock on his face cannot be concealed. "Humph." Lin Zion snorted coldly, and the two women fainted and fell to the ground. Swy Wilhei felt Lin Zion's anger for the first time. He just sighed and shook his head helplessly. "Look, these are all the people who were hypnotized by him." Lin Zion turned to Switekkai and said. Switekkai also understood what he meant, and felt frightened for a while. "Our Blackfoot master is really awesome." Hearing Lin Zion's words, Hija knelt down directly, pointed at Yukino Tekkai tremblingly and said, "It's none of my business. I was forced to do it. It's all their fault. Get out. Don't block me." Lin Zion kicked the black feet away. "I took Yukino Tekkai around here. This basement is quite big. There are prison-like rooms separated by a row of iron bars. There are some naked people in the room. There is only numbness in their eyes. There were luxurious private rooms that were out of place elsewhere, and a large open space filled with various props. A woman was tied up and hung up. Look, this is your master." Lin Zion pointed to the 6 scarred women who fainted on the ground, including the 2 just now. There are 8 in total, 2 of them are minors. Switekkai couldn't help it anymore. He was terrified when he thought that something almost happened to his daughter. It was his father who sent the sheep into the tiger's mouth. "Kyungsoon, bring him here." Chihiro Soma got into Blackfoot's body and controlled him to come over. Blackfoot's face was ashen. He knew that he was dead when he fell into Lin Xian's hands. He struggled wildly, but he still walked over step by step. How could he resist a piece of garbage that was crippled by Lin Xian? I don't have the final say on your life, they have the final say. It happened that there was a torture device here, Lin Xian tied it to the cross, and then woke them up. Soon there was a lot of crying in the basement. These women huddled together, especially the two miners. Only one woman not only did not cry, but also comforted them. Lin Xian saw that she was more reliable, so he named her and asked her to take people there. Shower, get dressed, eat. Uncle Swy, calm down, have you forgotten your identity, Lin Xian said with a smile. I have been working in shopping malls for many years, and I thought shopping malls were already dark enough. Tekkai Yukino extinguished a cigarette and said with emotion. I'll tell you the truth, the grievances of these women have become entangled with Blackfoot. Even if I don't take action, I won't be able to survive much longer with his behavior. What do you mean? You rich people are so good at playing, aren't I afraid that you will discover the new world, Lin Xian said with a smile. It's already this time, and you're still in the mood to joke. Swy Tekkai didn't understand him. Do you think this kind of thing happens here? We can only do what we can, and we just want to be clear of guilt. Lin Xian's words made Swy Wuhei silent for a while, and then he shook his head helplessly. How are you going to arrange them? Don't you want it? For those who have experienced something like this, as long as they are not crazy, they are very likely to become something big, and they can also help you warm your bed. Lin Xian looked at him with a smile. You still want to use them, do you still have any humanity? Swy Wuhei stared at Lin Xian angrily. It's not that they haven't come back yet. I was just joking to liven up the atmosphere. Your daughter is fine, so there's no need to feel the same way. Lin Xian raised his hands in a show of surrender. Lin Xian was silent and looked at the ground. Do you know why I escaped here? Yukino Tekkai looked at him a little surprised, not understanding why he suddenly asked this. Isn't it murder? Yes, kill people. Neither of them spoke, and the basement became quiet, except for the exhaust fan that was still running. When they reappeared in the basement, Yukino Tekkai had smoked a pack of cigarettes. The one who was crying just now has calmed down now. I don't know what she said to them. This woman has some tricks. Looking at the 8 people wearing black-footed clothes in front of him, Lin Xian said, it is impossible to call the police. I will never call the police in this life. This matter will be solved by itself. People will be where they are. But don't play to death yet. It's still useful. When I finish it, it doesn't matter if you kill him. Okay, let's go play now. These people all picked up the ready-made torture tools and walked towards Blackfoot. Only the one named by Lin Xian just stayed. Seeing what she wanted to say, Lin Xian took the initiative and asked, what's wrong, young lady? How are you going to arrange it for us? Don't say that. I'm not a human trafficker. You have hands and feet. How can I control you? Lin Xian thought for a moment and then added, if you want to go home, I will ask for a compensation for you. No matter what, if you want to go home, go to this boss and he will make arrangements for you. Swy Tekkai had objections to Lin Xian's arrangement, but he couldn't refuse. It was indeed a small thing for him, so he could only nod to her. Seeing that she was still standing still, Lin Xian asked, is there anything else? Why don't you go vent it? Some things cannot be suppressed and need to be released. I don't need it. Only a ghost can believe you, you have the greatest resentment here, and Lin Xian can see the resentment. In fact, Lin Xian asked them to vent for their own good. Kingsun Weimu would absorb their grievances during the process of venting. Otherwise, even if they go out, there is a high chance that they will go crazy. Not everyone can be like her. Lin Zion suddenly became interested in the Iron Man in front of him and slowly started chatting with her. Her name is Misaki Ikeb, she was captured 5 years ago, and she is one of the first batch of people. The reason is that she is beautiful. She originally had a happy family, and she was not a housewife. She was the financial director of a large company, with a successful career. She was originally good, but Blackfoot appeared out of nowhere and wanted to control her, but Blackfoot was a piece of trash. It failed, so he had to forcefully tie her back. Blackfoot was afraid that something would happen, so she killed her son and husband, who had been looking for her. It was a real loss of family life. She didn't know that her son and husband were dead until Blackfoot showed off in front of her. According to her, she stayed here the longest and suffered the most torture, but she survived and was not buried in the backyard. Until you came and rescued me, thank you. Lin Zion looked at Misaki Ikeb, who said everything easily and couldn't help but admire her strength of will. Lin Zion shook his head and said to this poor woman, I'm not looking for Blackfoot to save you. I'm just following the trend to save you. Chibi and Misaki fell silent, and Yukino Tekkai beside him couldn't stand it anymore. Just as he was about to say something, he was interrupted by Lin Zion's wave. Okay, now I'm going to get the compensation for you. Misaki Ikeb, come here and help me. After saying that, he walked towards Kurozu. When those women who were having fun saw Lin Zion's arrival, they took the initiative to stand on both sides and let Blackfoot out. Ladies, did you have fun? No one answered his words. Lin Zion continued to talk to himself. Now ladies, please go back to sleep above. I have some business to do. I will give you an explanation after I finish it. The woman left under the organization of Misaki Ikeb, leaving 3 people behind. Why don't you go back? What's down there is not suitable for you to see. It would be bad if I scared you, Lin Zion said to Swai Tekkai. Seeing that Swai Wuhei was still here and not going back, Lin Zion added. When did I lie to you? I'll leave you some good stuff later. Don't worry, I still have something I need you to help me with. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 29. After Yukino Tekkai left, Lin Zion directed Misaki Ikeb to work. Go over there and get the camera. Also, go to the kitchen and get a bag of salt, a bucket of water, and a knife. Chibi and Misaki went to get something, while Lin Zion was looking at Blackfoot. His body was covered with needles, and certain places were particularly focused. There were traces of whips and candles all over, as well as burn marks. Lin Zion turned off the enema machine and asked Blackfoot. How's it going? Does this feel comfortable? Blackfoot couldn't answer him at all now. With a ball of saliva in his mouth, he could only make a woo-woo-woo sound with all his strength. Lin Zion pulled out the needles from Hiju and said to himself, their methods are too low level, which prevents Master Hiju from experiencing the highest level of treatment. But you don't have to be afraid, I'm different. I know a little bit about everything from licking nails, pulling out teeth, picking fingers, and I will definitely let Master Blackfoot enjoy it. Let's just wait for the show to begin. Yukino Tekkai was sitting on the sofa in the hall, watching Misaki Chibana move things into the basement. He didn't know what Lin Zion was going to do, but it was definitely nothing good. From noon to evening, Swai Tekkai waited for 8 hours. He finally couldn't sit still. The sound insulation in the basement was so good that no sound could be heard. Unable to bear it, Swai Tekkai was going to go down to the basement to find Lin Zion. But when he got to the backyard, he hesitated again. He stared at the garage, and finally decided to go back and wait. Fortunately, Lin Zion came out not long after. As soon as Lin Zion came out, he sat on the sofa and handed the camera and a piece of bloody paper to Yukino Tekkai. I'm really tired. I'll leave these to you, as well as the dozen corpses buried in the backyard. Yukino Tekkai took the paper and found that it was all names. Where's Misaki Ikebe? Dead, committed suicide. How could it be? We just rescued her. Why did she commit suicide? Why didn't you save her? Faced with Yukino Tekkai's doubts, Lin Zian said calmly, how many times can you save a person who is determined to die? Forget it, she is too tired, give her a relief. Yukino Tekkai also knew that his idea was too naive and he couldn't refute it. Then what is this? Tekkai Yukino raised the camera and asked. This is the crime story confessed by Blackfoot. You show it to the people on the list and ask them to pay. Blackfoot is really rubbish. Just scare them and tell them. Okay, I'm tired. Let's go first. Lie down for a while and you can figure it out yourself. When Lin Zian woke up, it was already past 9 o'clock in the evening. Sui Wuhei had gone somewhere, and he was the only one in the whole villa. Hey, where are you going? Lin Zian called Sui Wuhei. I'm arranging people. We can't let them stay there forever. Are you going back? I'll ask the driver to come over. You ask the driver to come back later. I have to deal with the basement. There is so much resentment there. If you leave it alone, some strange things may be born. Okay, I'll take care of the rest. Stepping into the basement again, Misaki Chibana was lying on the big bed in the private room. There was a gap in her neck, but no blood flowed out. Her whole body turned gray and white, like porcelain, which was very strange. Originally, Misaki Chibana was going to commit suicide, but when Lin Zian saw how miserable she was, he asked her if she would like to live in another way. She thought that Lin Zian wanted to use her. She knew that Blackfoot killed people because he wanted to feed his ghost, but she still agreed. To repay him, Misaki Chibian glanced at Lin Zian and then committed suicide. Lin Zian put away Chihiro Sogi, who was staying next to Misaki Chibe, and checked Misaki Chibe's condition. Lin Zian knew what she was thinking, but there was no explanation. In fact, she was right. Lin Zian was using her for experiments. Because Chihiro Somu failed that time, he wanted to see if it was because of his soul or his problem. However, the experimental conditions and subjects were different, and Lin Zian was more calm now than the first time. When Ikebe Misaki broke free from the prison of her body, the change was obviously much greater than Chihiro Toki's. It may be that she has been grudged for a long time. She was born with a power equivalent to that of an evil spirit. Unlike Chihiro Toki, who can only rely on instinctive reactions, Misaki Ikebana can easily control the power and retain her previous memories. Looking at Misaki floating in the air by the pool, Lin Zian sighed, a perfect creation, it's really not my problem. It's all Blackfoot that destroyed Chihiro Sogi's soul integrity. Lin Zian felt that even if he didn't do anything, Misaki Chibana would turn into an evil ghost, but the kind that lost his mind. Let's go, come home with me first, and then you can choose to stay or stay after you get familiar with me. Home. Misaki Chibana looked at the body that had been cracked and broken into pieces. Lin Zian saw her look like that and helped her pack up the body and put it away. He added, yes, come home with me first. Lin Zian got into Sui Wuhei's car and was on his way back. Lin Zian thought wickedly, how would the driver react if he knew there were two ghosts in the car? He had burned down the basement, and Misaki Chibana's body had been disposed of. There were already ashes in his bag. He dragged his exhausted body back home, but he couldn't go to bed yet because the big meal promised to Ziobai had not yet arrived. Ziobai saw that he had brought some strange things home again, with a look of distrust on his face. Humph. Carrot, the master is such a bad guy, even if he doesn't play with me all day long, he also brings back messy things all day long. I'm really worried about this family. He hadn't even eaten yet. He first fried a piece of sari to apologize to Xiaobai, and then he simply made fried rice with eggs. Life. Lin Xian released the two ghosts. Misaki Ikebana has obviously adapted to the current situation, while Chihiro Toki is still dumbfounded. This is my home. Let me tell you about this matter from beginning to end. This is Kinksun Waikiki, who I came from. Lin Xian talked for almost half an hour before briefly explaining to them what happened in the past 2 days. The situation is like this now. I created you just as an attempt. You are no longer human beings. Human laws are no longer valid for you. I don't care if you want to take revenge. But don't use my name outside. If you want to stay here, I have no problem with it, but just don't show up in front of ordinary people and don't cause trouble for me. Decide whether to stay or go. Lin Xian looked directly at the two of them. Chibi and Misaki lay lazily next to Lin Xian, putting her hands on his shoulders. I'm tired. You said you would give me a home. Lin Xian looked at her hands in surprise. She could actually condense entities now, even though it was just a pair of hands. What on earth did I create? Lin Xian ignored her and asked Weima Kinksun, what about you? I. Kinksun Waiki kept repeating as if her computer was stuck. Forget it, let's wait until you recover your memory. Lin Xian looked at her with a headache. I'm not afraid to tell you that you can't practice on your own because you don't have a body. Your body is made up of resentment, so you can only maintain this state by absorbing resentment. This is why Blackfoot kills someone every once in a while. The reasons for people are similar. If you left just now, you would have two choices. The first is to slowly dissipate, and the second is to kill people to gain a lot of resentment, and then be destroyed by an expert who appears out of nowhere. Lin Xian stared at Chibi and Misaki, as if everything was told to her. Lin Xian sensed Misaki Chibana's ambition. Perhaps it was derived from her feeling the powerful power in the ghost state, or perhaps it had always been there. Why are you looking at me? Misaki Chibana looked surprised, and most of her already loose clothes slipped off. Seeing her acting like this, Lin Xian was speechless. You are a soul body, and your clothes are all transformed by yourself. You are a lemon. Not to mention that before it solidified, all Lin Xian saw was a mass of resentment. You are tempting lemons. You are insulting my intelligence. Is this how you used to seduce those evil pens? Have you forgotten what you are now? Okay, the experiment is completed, I don't want to play anymore, you can go and die for real. My retirement life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 30. When Ikeb Misaki heard Lin Xian's words, she was about to get up, but suddenly she found that she couldn't move. Are you also an idiot? I assembled the toys myself, so I will naturally disassemble them. After Lin Xian finished speaking, he activated the backhand in her body, and slowly Ikeb Misaki began to collapse amidst the begging and abuse, and then collapsed into a bead. Lin Xian picked up the bead and looked at it. This is a good thing. I seem to hear the wailing of the soul. Ikeb Misaki can be said to have very bad luck. She had been lurking in Hija for so long, but she didn't expect to be seen through by Lin Xian at a glance. The main reason was that Lin Xian found that Hija's memory had been changed. His things were not stolen, but given to him by a cult. The school bullying that year was also arranged by them. Hija was just a pawn, and Ikeb Misaki was arranged by the cult next to Hiju. She has been absorbing resentment in the basement, so Lin Xian saw that she was full of resentment. She was left behind by Lin Xian to watch his performance. She was afraid of revealing the cult's information, so she chose to commit suicide. Sometimes death is not terrible. She acted well, but Lin Xian looked at the memory. There is no secret under the soul search. Generally, the memory of Blackfoot has been changed, just like the records in the computer. If you delete it, you can still find it back in front of some knowledgeable people, unless someone locks it, then you need to crack it. Judging from the means used by Blackfoot, this cult is rubbish. Lin Zion lay in the pool and called Shui Wu Hai. Beep, beep, beep. What's the matter? Shui Wu Hai was a little irritable. What happened today was a little beyond his ability. Uncle, calm down. I just want to tell you that you may be targeted by a cult, but don't be afraid. Come to my place tomorrow and I'll give you something as compensation for pulling you in. Remember to bring your secretary and the information of the 5 abusers. Even if you're not here, I still have to take care of this kind of thing if I see it. By the way, Yukino Kazumi should wake up tomorrow. I changed her memory to you accompanying her on a trip to China. As long as you don't mention me in front of her, she will soon forget me. That pendant is my gift. Lin Zion dried his hair and looked at Chihiro Wei in front of him. She is like a puppet now. Lin Zion is controlling her actions today. He needs to find a way to complete her soul so that she can be spiritual. Forget it, let's do it tomorrow. Let's go to bed now. Lin Zion shook the seal and Chihiro Wei was put away. No, let's get it done today. I have something to do tomorrow. Lin Zion is going to upgrade Chihiro Wei today. Arriving at the basement, he took out the soul crystal just now and put it into the body of Chihiro Itsuki. Chihiro Itsuki turned into a soul body again, wrapped in the soul crystal. Yes, it's that simple, just wait for Chihiro Itsuki to assimilate it. Ring ring ring, ring ring ring. The phone rang, Lin Zion opened his eyes, and the dazzling sunlight made him instinctively raise his hand to block his eyes. Pick up the phone and answer the call. Moses. Is it classmate Shigeki Aoda? A familiar female voice came, and Lin Zion woke up immediately. Yes, are you teacher Gongzong Liwi? The other party asked after confirming that it was Lin Zion. Why didn't you come to class again today? Also, explain why you didn't come yesterday. I went to crack down on cult activities yesterday and saved a few people by the way. Tell the truth, Gongzong Liwi was obviously in a bad mood and her attitude was a bit irritable. I was wrong. I didn't go to school yesterday because I had a fever. I probably won't be able to go today. I'll go tomorrow when I feel better, Lin Zion said perfunctorily. Is Kongmu okay? I remember that the information you filled out said you live alone. Gongzong Liwi actually believed Lin Zion's words and said with concern. It's okay. I've been to the hospital. Don't worry, Lin Zion could only continue to talk. Do you want me to see you? No, I'm much better now. I just took medicine and I'm a little sleepy now. I'm going to rest first. Teacher, you go to class. Don't worry about me. Okay, if you have any questions, remember to call me. After finally tricking Gongzong Liwi, Lin Zion looked at his phone. It was only a little after 8 o'clock, but he didn't even want to stay in bed now. He got up and tidied himself, made a hearty breakfast for himself, and cooked a few pieces of fish for Ziobai. After eating and drinking, it was time to get down to business. The little gift promised to Shui Wu Hai yesterday was not prepared yet. After checking on Chihiro Odoji, Lin Zion came out of the basement with a carving knife and a piece of raw stone. It was not until 11 o'clock that Yukino Takemi came over. Yukino Takemi brought Chizuru Heizu in, and before he could greet her, Lin Zion spoke first. How dare you come? Yukino Takemi was shocked, but he soon realized that Lin Zion was not talking to him, because Chizuru Heizu had already walked in front of him. Go, write down the cult members. Lin Zion did not stand up, nor did he even raise his eyes, and he was concentrating on the things in his hands. Yukino Takemi watched her pick up a pen and paper and write something. Uncle Swai, come and sit down. This is for you. Lin Zion finally raised his head and handed Swai Wuhei a jade ring. There is no decoration, just a simple polished ring. Okay. Swai Tekkai carefully took the ring, but didn't dare to put it on. Seeing how scared he was, Lin Zian smiled and said comfortingly, "Don't worry, I won't hurt you. This is a good thing that can save your life." Switek Kai understood that if Lin Zian really wanted me to harm him, there would be no need to go to such trouble, but he still didn't dare to wear it. "Bring it over." Lin Zian's words woke up Yukino Tek Kai, who was wandering in his mind. He looked at Heizuo Chizuru and found that her eyes were empty and her face was stiff. Lin Zian glanced at the list, and then handed the list to Yukino Tek Kai. "Okay, please be careful with these people. Now we are clear." Yukino Tek Kai found some very familiar names on the list. He now suspected that what happened to Yukino Yoshimi might have been done by this cult. The original person was probably just an outcast who was pushed out to take the blame. "Go back, this Yuzuchizuru is still valuable." Lin Zian gave him a suggestion. Yukino Tek Kai knew what Lin Zian meant. When Chizuru Hanzo wrote the list, she had already betrayed the cult. This cult must be quite capable, otherwise Misaki Ikebe would not have chosen to commit suicide. "Then I'll go back first." Yukino Tek Kai put on the ring, put down the document bag, and retreated with Yuzuchizuru. When the sound of the car starting sounded, Lin Zian let out a long sigh. "Ah, I finally got it done. I can calm down for a while." Lin Zian looked through the information left by Sui Wuhei. The addresses of those 5 people were all there. Lin Zian was going to visit tonight. Now of course it's time to eat. It's time for dinner. After emptying the refrigerator again, he was going to take Xiaobai out to buy some food to store. Lin Zian went out and sent a message to Oda Rina. "Rina, I'm going to the supermarket. Do you have anything to buy? I want pudding." "Good." Lin Zian was wearing a sweater, and Xiaobai was inside his hat, with his head popping up and looking around. The first time I took Xiaobai out, he seemed a little scared and no longer as active as he was at home. Lin Zian took it out of the hat and put it in his front pocket. The darkness should give it a sense of security. There was no accident this time, and he came back soon. This time he bought more fish. In Neon, fish is not expensive, and he bought a big bag with only a small amount of money. He also bought some cat food to see if Xiaobai liked cat food or fish. After returning home, Lin Zian took advantage of the time to clean up the backyard. The most important thing was to help Xiaobai take a bath tonight. But not long after it was done, before the backyard had time to do it, a trouble came. Miyazunri came over for a home visit. When Lin Zian saw her in the cat's eye door mirror, he knew that lies would be covered up with more lies. "Is Shigeki-san here?" When Lin Zian was lucky, his whole body temperature rose rapidly, and his face turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye. Lin Zian opened the door, looked at Gongzong-ri, and pretended to cough twice. "Ahem, why is the teacher here?" Seeing Lin Zian's appearance, Gongzong-ri was sure that he really had a fever. "I don't have class in the afternoon, so I came over to see you." "I have nothing to do, thank you teacher for your concern." Lin Zian blocked the door and did not let Gongzong-ri in. "Isn't Shigeki-san's family situation like what Hasakawa-san said? Won't you invite me in to take a look?" Miyazunri poked her head inside. "Teacher, please come in." Lin Zian gave up struggling, opened the door, and let Gongzong-ri in.